Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Dancer's Choice podcast. I'm Riley,
And I'm Dawson.
and we are back with another special guest this week. Kaley Jensen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Kaley Jensen. I am a wife, a mom, a creator, professor of dance, Pilates teacher trainer, and I just have a passion for helping dancers through professional, through post-professional, just reignite their passion, come back to their why, and thrive, in the big successes and all, and, in the day-to-day as well. Just finding joy in the journey.
So you wear so many hats. If just to kick it off, you may know her as Mindset to Move on Instagram. We fell in love with her content, and the heart that you see on Instagram is like what we're seeing right now. Just so much passion, as you can see through the screen, for helping dancers and artists. And so we're very excited to dive into this chat around that.
Yeah.
All that being said, can we start from the beginning? How did you even get into dance? Because I feel like that's a big part of everyone's why.
Oh yeah. And I love to ask dancers that same question, because sometimes we lose sight, and that's so easy to lose. And so I think my why was pretty classic. I loved being in the spotlight on stage. Like, I remember being on vacation with my family and being like, I'm going to go dance, like, on the dance floor, there's someone playing, so why wouldn't I go dance? And this loving to be in the limelight per se. And so that was how it started. And then I think it was in college that I really began to feel the shift of like, wait, it isn't about me, it's about the impact. We started to do with my ballet company these tours to these areas where dance wasn't as accessible, and just to see the shift in these like young kids, and like the inspiration and the impact that we can make. I was like, oh, okay, this is more than just for fun. Like, we have an opportunity here to really make an impact. So that's, it quickly turned into more. And then, in college, I was resistant. Like, maybe I should do something smart. Maybe I don't want to major in it. I think I fought it. And I remember taking an intro class to public health. I was all over the map from like what I wanted, what I thought I should do. And I remember this girl at the front of the class the very first day, and she broke down, was just so passionate, and was like, describing her passion in this field. And I dropped the class that day, and I was like, I know I want to be as passionate about what I'm doing as she is. And this is not it. And I know what I'm passionate about. And luckily I had some parents that both of my parents were really supportive in that fact that, like, this is what you're going to do, And so even with those moments of doubt, I'm like, I'm taking this all the way. So I graduated from college. I danced all the way through. Did the ballet company all 4 years, and then I was like, okay, what's next, and then I had a mentor come in who talked to me about grad school, and I was like, that's perfect. I can keep performing and choreographing and teaching, and like, yeah, no brainer. Like, I didn't realize what grad school actually meant, had this idea in my head. So went to grad school, and it was there that I met my husband, and also had just a pivotal moment of breaking my back and deciding, like, okay, like, it wasn't a matter of how I'm going to get back, or if it was how. I was going to do everything in my passion, which developed a new passion for helping me understand my body, and the gift that is, and put me on a whole different course as far as, career. And have been blessed since graduating grad school to move to Dallas and continue my professional career and grow our family. And it's just blossomed into this life that I'm like, man, feel really blessed to live the day-to-day scenario. And so try to be that example in all that I do, and all that I am, and just help dancers understand that it is possible. Every dream that's on your heart, every negative thing that you might have been told or believed, like, you can find that joy and purpose in the everyday. So that's kind of the journey in a nutshell, but hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. You have so much like light in the way you speak about it and your journey. And I'd love to backtrack if you don't mind
Yeah.
touching on it.
Oh,
How
yeah.
did your injury affect your perspective on dance and lead you to where you are now, specifically with mindset coaching?
Absolutely. So with my back, it was in that moment that, you know, so many good things happened in that time, even though in the midst of it, it was like, I'm supposed to be in San Francisco this summer doing a residency, training, and like doing all these things that it was hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, in that summer, I was like, instead, I'm having to live with my in-laws, and they're having to, like, my mom-in-law had to help me get dressed and shower. And like, it
Mm.
was crazy, you know? But in that time, I could really have the time. I think a lot of dancers can relate to not taking rest ever. Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
never there's never a time or a season that you're just off, you
Oh,
know, maybe
Mhm.
for more than a week or two at a time. So it was such a time to really reflect. And like I mentioned, like, okay, how am I going to get back? But also to give my body and mind the chance to like rebuild from the very beginning. Like, my physical therapist was like, you are going to have to approach this like you're 8 years old again, learning how to dance. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to come back. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to like, let's get back stronger. And that same year, I was able to get back on stage with a wheeled in piece in February. And like, I was so blessed to just have that deepened understanding and appreciation for how our bodies can heal, and
Mhm.
how we can decide in that moment, like, okay, you know, that could have like ended and I could have gone this way, but I was like, no, like,
Mm.
this is the way that I'm going to live. And it just was that decision in that moment, like, I have to get back, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be stronger, I'm going to have a quality life, like, yeah. And so I think it just made dance even more precious, and um kind of shifted from like hobby and passion to like actually means of healing as well. You know, like,
Mm.
we have this art form to heal, and so much of that can be taken and can be lost, but really is dance is like healing as well.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
100%.
love
I
this.
had a very similar experience where I didn't have an injury, like physical injury. It was more like an internal injury where I had to
Mhm.
take like a whole semester off of school, per my doctor's request. And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I have to stay. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, if you stay, like, this is what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's not going to end well. And I was like, okay, fine. And when I did take that 8 months off from school and then I came back in my senior year, I was like back and better than ever. Like, my love for dance was back, and I was going through phases all throughout college, and this was in my senior year where I had to take a break, but even freshman year to sophomore year to junior year, I was like, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? I'm just like, I'm doing this cuz I'm here, but I don't love it. But then when I came back after taking that space away from dance, not only was did I feel better as a dancer and happier dancing, but my dancing ability just like felt a lot stronger too, which is crazy because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to take time off, it's going to go the backwards result, like I'm going to get worse. But it's actually the complete opposite, because I feel like your passion, like, it reignites, and I feel like a lot of dancers need to take that space to
Yeah.
find their passion for it again.
Absolutely. That we need to normalize that a little bit more, because everybody's in this paranoia. I know I was like, I can't take a break. Like, you just like, it's ingrained in you. We're told like, don't take a week off. Like, yeah, I don't know about you. Were you told that?
Yes.
Did you hear that from your teachers? It's
Yeah.
like, it wasn't
Mhm.
an option. Like, you're
Yeah.
gonna get behind. It's this fear, but it's like, we need that to
Yeah.
heal and like understand the person out of the dancer, and like maybe these other talents and gifts that also help us as dancers. Like, when we
Yep.
Mhm.
bring all of that to our dancing, oh my gosh, that's how we meet
Absolutely.
people, is like strengthening that person underneath it all. So yeah, I'm so glad that you had that experience too. Like, man, I'm back and better in every way.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
I love how you mentioned finding what other gifts and talents you have that can lift up your dance career and your training, because I don't think that's talked about enough. And this is something Dawson and I have discussed before, and I know you have on your page, so I think it's like a perfect segue. But like having those other gifts and those other outlets that you're like, I can pursue this and I'm not relying heavily on dance to give me all the joy and all the purpose I need and am desiring, prevents that burnout to hit so drastically. And how have you seen that in your personal life / how do you help your clients through burnout struggles? Because I think it's so common in dance, but like you said, we suppress it and we try not to acknowledge it because it's, how dare you take a day off?
Exactly. No, and it's like, ooh, we rely so much on, sometimes it's like what we're doing or what our title is, like what we're doing. And we can just get so wrapped up. Or for me, I know when my burnout hit for the first time, it was like my self-worth was dependent on my director's like mood of the day, and she wasn't exactly stable, I will say that. And so it was hard. It was really hard. Like some days it was like
back.
I got a lot of attention and it was great, and then other days it was like, so therefore my self-worth and everything was tied to what I was casted in, and that was emotionally exhausting. And so I really had to take a step back and be like, whoa, okay, why do I dance? My biggest, I think one of the biggest quotes that changed my perspective was nothing to prove, everything to give. Nothing to prove, everything to give. So I was like, okay, what do I have to give? And who do I dance for? So just stripping back the layers of like, who are you? Who are you? And that matters more than any title or role. Like no one can take that away from you. And when you bring that, it's like, so when you focus on that identity and who you believe to be and where you believe you're going, unstoppable. Like nothing else matters. So that can be a lot of that burnout, because it's this superficial of like, what, cutting through all the crap and just getting to who you are.
Yeah.
So important, looking at the individual. And that's hard too, because it's weird. There's a balance between dance is so individualized, especially when you go into the industry. It's like every man for themselves, good luck. But also when you're in studio dance, competitive dance, it's, well, we're looking at the whole group. So the individual goes out the window. And so when you're back and forth between the two, it's like, okay, well, am I my own person or am I part of like a general population? And you don't know what, because then you only identify with dance.
Yeah.
Oof.
It's a mind game.
Yeah. No, it definitely is a mind game for sure.
Mind game. Yeah. And like how do you stay out of the mind game? How do you keep that clarity? And like, I think just going back to that bigger perspective of like, okay, does this really matter right now? Like all you can do is be your best, right? To like be that canvas and to take correction, but not let it, like, that doesn't affect your worth, just because you were given something or you didn't do this right. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
I can always try again though. It's okay. Like I'm trying my best. Forget the rest. Cliche.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Hey, cliche for a reason.
Yeah. I actually had an experience last week on Friday. I was doing a private, and when you say you take your correction, but it doesn't equate to what your worth is. I was doing a private with a dancer, and she was just having like, I mean, she's an incredible dancer, like nonetheless. But she, like, her turns were just like off one day, and I wasn't like mad about it or anything, but like she just let it affect the entire private. And she did her solo for the last time, and she was like on the verge of tears the entire solo, because this girl is also, she's like 12 years old, going for a national title, and her mom is having her do about 5 privates a day with like various different teachers. They're traveling to do privates, like just so much. And I could tell that this has just been a lot for her. So I like sat down and I talked to her, and I was like, I know like this is our first time meeting, but like, how are you doing? She's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, really? Because I could see you're like about to start crying right now. Like, do you want to talk about anything? She's like, no, okay. Finishes the solo the very last time, like breaks down. The first thing she says, I'm so bad. I was like, where's the podcast when we need her? What's going on? I was like, let's talk, let's sit down. And it is just so crazy. And I want you to like, because I know we have a lot of college dancers that listen to this podcast, but we also do have some dance moms that listen to this podcast too.
Mm.
And maybe you can touch upon like burnout from their perspective, like what they're doing to their child that maybe their kid doesn't necessarily say to them is a lot. And how their push as a dance mom to want their kid to be better could in turn be burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say to dance moms, please just be their mom. Like the blending of the coach, like what they need from you is encouragement and affirmation. I was so grateful to have a mom that was truly there, just like giving me grace and being like, Kaley, did you try your best? That's all I care about. If your best equates, and this is talking about, school, but to dance too, right? Like she'd be like, did you try your best? I don't care if your best is a C. Doesn't matter to me as long as you did your best. That's all. And that gave me, because I feel like as dancers and as people, we can be so hard on ourselves already. We're already putting that pressure on. So that added layer of like, you have to do this or like earn the love kind of, no, that is so damaging. And I think maybe it's this push, it's out of love because obviously, moms want the best for their kids, but it's like at the end of the day, just be encouraging, be there, and affirm them, to give them grace, is what we need, I think, more than anything.
Yeah.
Too many times trying to be hands-on, but I think hands-on gets a step too far.
Right.
Which goes back to cliches. Dance moms is a cliche for a reason.
And is it for you, like, do you want it or did they really want it? I see that sometimes too. And it's like, yeah. And
I've seen that, like college level. Like it doesn't just stop at like middle school, but like 21 plus year old dancers who still feel like they need to do it for mom.
Yeah, they're doing it to please their mom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I had absolutely please, or that they're being scrutinized still. I had a good friend who, it just was sad. The involvement and like the micromanaging of her decisions and like her weight and it's like how that still affects her in some ways today. And it's like, yeah.
Big breaths.
Big breaths, yeah. But the good news is we can be better. Like we can do better. We can take all the good. And that's why what just fuels what I do today is like, wow, I get to shape the minds for good. Like I can take all the good and all of the things that helped me. I can get rid of what was not helpful and I can pour that into this coming generation. And it's never too late to change the minds of the older ones too, but just like what a power and gift that is to think it's like we can be the change.
We love saying that around here.
That's what we like to say around here.
I love
be
it.
the change.
Talking about getting rid of the bad and keeping the good, as a teacher, professor, professional coach, all that stuff, what are some things that you are trying to get rid of in dance spaces that you take up, and then maybe things you're trying to bring in to replace that? Because that's a big thing with being the change. Like, what can we do? What are you doing? What would you encourage other teachers to do the same?
Such a good question, because there's so many things. But the first one that came to my mind was this idea of that we're behind.
Ooh.
You're on a timeline. Okay, this is such a problem still. Like I was taking a I don't want to say kids class, but it was like one of the older, students, more advanced, but I was still the oldest in there. But I was like, I need to put myself in a training class. Like this is good for me, But then the teacher goes, all right, guys, this was a class. They were like 14, 15. She's like, she was telling them essentially that they were behind and that they should be at this level. And in my mind, I just remember being that age and still like being so like taking everything in like it was just the truth. It's the truth, right? And how much that can affect. So I would say your words in the classroom are, you need to choose extremely carefully. Like be so mindful, because everything that you say is felt. It's felt. No matter if it's good or bad, like somebody may be able to just brush it off, whatever, but words have a weight.
Yeah.
So what is going to be your weight? Is it going to be for good, or is it going to instill these limiting beliefs? Because if you constantly feel like that's a huge problem. Do you find it in your dancers that I'm behind? Everybody feels like they're behind for some reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Myself.
It's huge.
Myself included.
I feel like
Like,
I'm
oh, I
behind
should
half the
be here.
time.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm behind. I just feel like I'm behind. I feel like I'm like, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with dancers who feel behind. Literally 99% of us, you know?
Yeah.
So I would say behind, you're not behind, and then it's never too late. Like I've been surrounded by dancers who are, you know, if you know Jennifer Mavis, I don't know if you know her, but she's like in her 50s, killing it, crushing it. And I'm like, yeah, I started to get all my feels last year about like turning 30 and like, I'm so old. She was like, Kaley, my best dancing years were in my 30s. And I was like, really?
Like, okay.
You like, okay, let's go. So like you have so much time left. So I would say that to the teachers, like be encouraging, like speak life into them with your words, and hold a standard that is demanding but never demeaning. That is a fine line too.
Yeah.
Like
demanding but not demeaning. Yep. That's a big one.
Because my favorite teachers were like, they lit a fire under me, and they were like, they weren't afraid to be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like,
yes.
Oh, but I knew it was because they loved me and they cared about me and they cared about my success. And I just remember the times that my first teacher like was like, she just spoke what I was, like, you are this, you are that. And that I remember in my moments of like, man, should I quit? Like she was like holding me, you know, like those words were just like deep within me.
Yeah.
So the power that you have, either way.
Yeah. Words can go so far. And even like you made the comment of, oh, we can just brush it off. But I think it's almost when we brush it off that it sits deeper.
It comes back.
We're told like, be tough skin.
It's
like, don't let it affect you.
Back, it resurfaces. Like it's like you're in therapy like 10 years later, and you're like, wait, we're
like,
talking about something that
go.
like I'm like still trying to like it's like a little comment that you know in the moment you don't think is like that big of a deal, but then years down the line, like you're going through scenarios and things in your life where you're like, oh my gosh, that all of that is like it's resurfacing now. Like that was like a trauma that I didn't even realize.
Oh yeah, it sticks with you.
Yeah,
it sticks with you more than you realize, and it holds you back. And the thing is, those thoughts become like, the more that you think them and the more that they're in there, it becomes your belief, you know, and then that affects directly how you feel and what you choose to do. So it's like, man, you got to figure out what's going on in there.
Yeah.
We don't take time to do that because we're just grinding and hustling and going. But it's like, taking time to figure out actually like, what is my internal dialogue though? Like what's happening?
And I think even the other level is, you know, on this note, we're taught to basically suppress our emotions. And this has come up in a lot of conversations, just like with other dancers in my life this week. So I want to bring it up and see what your thoughts are on it. But, you know, we're told to suppress emotions because, you know, it makes us tough. We don't have time to deal with it. Like there's a game plan, there's training that has to get done. Once again, you need to stay on schedule. So can't fall behind by like feeling something or like having a moment. And all of this goes into play that like as dancers, we face so much rejection, and like just the human body in general isn't meant to face as much rejection as we do. So like not only are we facing it, but then we're not allowing ourselves to feel it. Like we're suppressing that. How have you seen that build up with dancers, and what advice would you give to like whether it's competitive dancers or professionals to feel that and like take care of their emotional health with that whole side that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a twofold, right? Because like you said, you got to take time to feel it. It's okay. It's okay that you whatever happened, you weren't accepted or the audition go as planned, like feel it, let it out, like let yourself process, but then come back to, okay, what is the truth? What am I going to do from here? I feel like the faster you can, not just like quickly, suppress it, but like feel all the things. But then like, one of my favorite things to do actually is when you're detaching from like a very emotional process is rewriting the story in third person. Why? Because it's like it takes the I out of it. It's so rewrite that scenario as a third person story. But then what you're going to go to do is think about the future, how you want to move forward, what you want to happen from there on out, and write that in first person. And become more attached to like, this is what I'm going to do from here. This is how I'm going to feel. This is who I am. Like, so that's one of the fastest ways I feel like, and just best ways to kind of like detach, process through it, but then move forward. Because here's the reality about rejection. It is unavoidable. When you accept it as part of the process and part of the journey, and you see it as like, okay, one step closer. It's never a win-lose scenario. It's always a win-win. Like you have to believe deep in your core that things are always falling together for you. Not falling apart. Not like, oh, someone rejected me. Like, no, quit taking it personally. You could be the juiciest apple and they're looking for an orange. It wasn't work. It wasn't meant for you. What is meant for you will come for you. It will never pass you. So things are like that belief of like, things are always working out for me. Rejection is it's fine, but it doesn't mean that they're rejecting me. Like I still hold my weight and my value. I heard the best thing once. It was like, everybody has these like valleys of sorrow. Like sometimes you just see this like surface level success, right? Like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's winning this and they're going whatever. Like you just see above this, but you don't see the roots of like rejection here. This happened, this happened, this happened. All those roots though, become the picture, but nobody is exempt from their like rivers of misery. Absolutely no one. So when it comes to rejection, every hard thing in your life, like you need that to experience the good. But the thing is, we never see that. We see the highlight reels. No. We see the social media like, their life is so good. But we don't understand that surface. Like there's so much underneath that helps us grow.
Yeah. That's so good. Taking notes. Yeah. I'm going back to the question list because I could easily get off topic right now. Okay, so we've talked about like rejection, burnout. Are there any other common struggles or challenges you see dancers face that maybe you like have a solution for, or something that maybe we aren't thinking about? You're like, I just didn't realize how many dancers experience this, because one big thing we say on here is like no dancers alone, and like we're all thinking it but no one's saying it. So is there anything that comes to mind, a common challenge you see?
Absolutely. There's a couple, but I'll start with probably the biggest one, and that is comparison. Comparison. It's so cliche.
Yeah.
Again, this cliche word but it starts in our young minds. Like even we did a mindset to movement mini camp this past week, and just asking them like, oh, what are you all struggling with as like 10-year-olds? And they're like, well, when I go to these competitions, it's just like, is she going to beat me? Is she better than me? I hope she doesn't. Like, they're already so like, I don't want you to get better. Like one of them was literally like, I don't want her to get better because then she'll be better than me. I'm like, no. It's like, she's 10.
Gosh.
10 and 9. Like they're already, because I think it's so natural when you're competing. I wasn't a comp kid, so I can't exactly relate in that regard, but there's competition everywhere. Even when you're taking class, like it's so easy to get in that mindset of like, she's so good. Like she has this, she says that, she has that. I'm not as good as her. It's just you're measuring up. So, but I want you to reframe as like being curious, a little bit. It takes the pressure off of like the competition side, but like, okay, that's interesting. Like she can do it this way, but like owning your strengths first and foremost, and just acknowledging that like what you have, when you are really confident in what you bring to the table, there virtually is no competition, because no one has your same experience and no one has her same experience. So there's literally no, you could do the same movement and it would look totally different because you're different people. And so own that. I feel like your uniqueness is like your superpower. And so don't let anybody else's strength take that away. So when you reframe, I think, comparison as like curiosity, and you're like, okay, cool, like just more of an appreciation. And first and foremost, understanding what you bring. It's like, there's no need to compare. It's just, no.
I really appreciate the like replacement of curiosity, because I feel like this is something I see heavily in the open class space, at least where I am at, is once again, like industry professionals, the comparison lies, but it comes with jealousy and bitterness of like, oh, why didn't I get called out? Or like, I was doing good, but like, I went to that class, felt so good, and so got called out, but I didn't. Like, how did that happen? Instead of celebrating other wins, like, yes, owning your strengths, but then also celebrating others' strengths in return. And that lacks heavily. And like, I always thought that would just be like competition dance, but then you step into the real world and everyone's still doing the same thing. We haven't broken those habits.
It's true, especially when the whole world is like, you go to class to get the film to post, it's like, oh my gosh, it's a whole nother topic, but it's annoying, but I think the more, again, that you can build the belief and the surety of what you bring, you can genuinely be happy when someone else does something good. You just are. Like, when you're so full and you're like, and not in an egotistical way of like, I'm so good. Like, no. But when you're just shining, you're naturally like, that was so good. And like, that has no effect on you. What is that Stargirl book? Like that one that like nothing can shake you, because you're just like, you're just beaming, you just know. And then you can like, that gives others the permission to shine also. And for others to also shine. It's like, we're all shining here. We're not competing.
No.
And yes, somebody might get called out, but like, you can be genuinely happy. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. That was so good. Like,
the assurance that like my time will come, but maybe it's someone else's time right now.
Yeah. Okay. And this is another thing too, is some people will love you. Some people will not. Was that so hard for you guys? Okay. So hard. And I really, that was a whole nother just learning lesson, is like, man, you cannot let that affect, again, going back to your self-worth, because some choreographies will come in, everyone sees something different and wants something different. But never let that affect like your time will come, your moment will come, and you're not everybody's cup of tea, and you're not supposed to be. Like, that's impossible. And that's okay. Like, you can shine wherever you are, in whatever position. Like, you just do your best, and that's your place. Like,
exactly.
That's beautiful,
Yeah. Like,
sorry, you could.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, the dancers that are upset that they didn't get called out, and they were like, I did such a good job in class, and it's like, well, that's what you were in class for. Like, you felt good. Great.
Shouldn't that be enough?
That should be enough. You don't need someone to, you don't need
validate
the choreographer to validate that. Like, yeah, you felt good. You should walk out of the class being like, I killed that combo. You know what? They didn't like me doing it. That's fine, because I loved myself doing it. I thought I looked great doing it. So they didn't want to get a video of me. Fine. That's whatever. But I liked myself doing it. And that's what it was for. Like, it's not to have someone have some external validation to you. Like, you didn't pay $25 to come to have maybe the choreographer or the teacher say, hey, great job, let me get a video of you doing it. Like, you're paying that $25 to get that experience, to go in there and be like, wow, like, I had a really good class and I feel really good. Like, that's what the class is for.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's like, that just ties into the idea of like, what is success to you? Is success being pointed out and to being recognized, or is success feeling so good about your own performance that it doesn't even matter?
Yeah.
That's success to me. Is like, if you feel so good in your body and you're like, man, I had such a good time. that's the joy. That's the joy of dance that we lose because we're seeking that. We're seeking that like approval or validation or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And that'll
Yeah.
never fill your cup. Because what? You can get it for a split second and then you leave class and it's over.
Exactly.
So what's going to give you that constant joy rather than like burst of happiness for a second and be like, yay, I did it. And then you leave and it's gone. What do you have to hang on to?
That's fleeting, isn't it? That's what we talked
Yeah.
about. Another idea is like, what does it mean to win? Like, okay, so we got really deep to, okay, what does it mean to win? Well, it means that you get the first place, you get the trophy. Okay. Why is that important to you? And why is that important to you? Like, what does that bring to you actually, you know? And also, what company audition are they going to be like, what competitions did you win?
Literally.
You don't care.
I threw out every single trophy that I had the minute
you.
that I like got to college. I was like, why do I have this? Like, why did that matter so much to me at 12 years old?
So much.
High gold trophy just sitting in my, like, a piece of plastic. Like, really? That doesn't really matter that much.
Yeah. And if you're waiting for those moments to feel like, oh, it's like those moments of success. And that's like anything in life, like those big moments of recognition or whatever it might be, like you'll feel happy for about 10 minutes to 24 hours. And then it's a new day.
You forget about it too.
You forget about it. It's like, okay, moving on. So it's like, we talked about like, how can we win more on the daily? Like, how can we find daily wins of like, I feel like those are overlooked so much because we're just in the grind. We're doing it. No, but look at the growth. Like, you gotta just like, those small wins are way more than the big ones in my opinion. So reframing to really see and recognize those small wins every single day.
Yeah, I will say college really taught me that. I was like, you know what? I got through ballet today. That's the win.
I woke up. I woke up for ballet today. Okay, that's what it is. I woke up for ballet. I woke up for 7 a.m. or was it 8 a.m. ballet? I woke up for 8 a.m. ballet. I was here. Okay, that is a win in my book.
That's awesome. Did you go to school together?
Yeah. We did. We both went to Point Park, so we met up there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
amazing. Yeah, no, and that's
holy moly.
Yeah, I think we're programmed to look at too, like, what we didn't do, what we're not yet, things we have to fix, and it's like, no, but like that, does that leave us feeling good? Does that leave us like wanting to work on things? No, it leaves us feeling like crap. Well, we're not. Yeah. So you need to focus on what you are, and focusing on that will help build momentum to like, what else can I do, or what else? Who else am I? You know, it's like building on that, using that as like your motivation and inspiration, I think.
The what we're not yet, that like hit a chord for a second, because I'm like, what if we're so focused on like what we could be, just like internally, like the potential of ourselves, but what if that's not even written in the plan for us? Like, we're so focused on like what could be that we forget to be where we are right now. And then what if that's like not even where we're supposed to end up? But we have this idea because it's what someone else gave us or someone else told us we had to be.
And like, that is,
and we're just like out here searching for it, and like the universe is like, no, like that's not for you. Like, I have something so much better planned, but like you're just in the wrong space. Like, get out of that space. That's not for you.
It's not for you. And I think it's so easy in today's age where you're looking at all the possibilities and what so-and-so's doing, what so-and-so, and maybe they're in your same season of life, and you're like, oh, I want to do that. I should do that. Should I be doing that? And then it's like a mess right in your head. So it's so important to like stay true to like, but what do I want though? Do I really want that? Like, what is really for me? And getting clear on what you do want.
Yeah.
And staying in that and staying focused. And that can be hard with lots of distractions and lots of other things happening, and shiny object syndrome of like, oh. So that's like, stay focused. One of my best things that my dad was, when I almost got off the path, when things got real hard and I started to feel burnout in college, he was like, Kaley, stay the course. Stay the course. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm so glad I did. You know, like, I'm so glad I just like stayed. And that doesn't mean that you're that your course can't take turns or like pivots like
No.
as it should, and you know, things that were right aren't always right, you know, like certain company situations. I was like, okay, like time to make a move, but it's so important to be in tune with that. Otherwise, a few degrees off, you find yourself in a different place than you intended.
Like,
So
oh
like
no, how do I get out?
exactly, being
Yes.
so like internally like checked in.
Yeah.
Like, am I happy? Is this where I'm meant to be? Like, okay.
So I have a question on top of that then, because at least it's something like I've really had to dive into is I almost didn't know what I wanted because I had such clouded, blurred vision because of all the environments I was, you know, going into with dance. So do you have any practices or, you know, internal work that you could advise to dancers who are like, I don't know if this is what I want to do, but I don't even know what the other options are, like practices to kind of find that, like find what you want, because I think it's too easily told to us what we should want and the supposed to wants that we don't even know how to like think on our own or dive internally to even see what it is that like our individual is made for.
Absolutely. What do we want? Like, what do we even want? There's a quote that I heard once that I was like, oof. And it was something to the effect of, you do know what you want. You may just be scared to say it aloud. Shoot. Like, do we believe that we're worthy of that thing? First of all. So don't be scared to admit what you really want. But if you're in a place of like a practical thing, I love doing is thinking about, you can choose the time frame that you want, right? 6 months, a year. And you can say, okay, what is a day in my dream life? From the moment I wake up to when I go to sleep, like, what am I doing? Where am I? What is the work? Who am I seeing? Like, go through your entire day. Sometimes that can, because the question of like, what do I want? It's like, it can seem so big and so vast. But when you think about just an average day in the life, what are you doing? Who are you spending your time with? Like, get really clear on what that looks like. And then begin to like, okay, then you can fill in the spaces and say, okay, what things how would I proceed to get there, you know, to make that actually my reality? And that was something so helpful to me, is look ahead into the future, just a day in the life, build it out. And if you know you can build it in your mind, you can make it happen in your life. 100%.
Just that alone just like showered me with so much peace. I'm like, oh, it's like we overcomplicate it so much.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like such a silly thing. Like it's just what you want. Like it's not rocket science, but it feels like the end of the world because, like you said, maybe we're scared to say what it is because it doesn't look like the norm.
No, and it's that I fully believe, like, you take nothing else away. It's like, what is on your heart is there for a reason. So follow it. Follow it with all that you are. Like, go after, my best advice given to me was like, go after your biggest dreams, like your biggest, boldest dream, and just do it. Like, go for it. Because you are the only person standing in your way right now. So just know that all the desires in your heart, they're there for a reason. So trust it, because you do know.
100%. Ooh. So then sidetracking, because I do want to touch on this before we close out.
Yeah.
Love that you introduced yourself as a mother and a wife. How have you had that life with dance? Because we are trained to say you can't have it all, you can't have both. What does that look like in your life? How have you gotten to where you are now? Because I think it's so beautiful that like you are making everything happen. You're like, I have balance and I'm happy. And you sound like you're happy. And I would just love to hear about that.
Yeah. It's my favorite thing to talk about, because it really is like a taboo thing. And more people are speaking up about it and you're seeing it more. But I was super blessed to be put in these circumstances where I witnessed it. Like back in 2017, where I did a choreographic like collaboration with Sterling Dance Theater, and many of the dancers there are like, I danced with 3 dancers. One of them was a mom of 3, another one was a mom of 5, and they were dancing
Oh my
full-time
gosh.
still with families. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? This is amazing. And their setup is like when they rehearse, they have childcare. And I'm like, what? That is a dream. And I knew that one day I'm like, I want to keep dancing, and I want to be a mom, but I don't know how this is going to look like, but just little glimpses. So that experience. And then fast forward a few years later, same thing. Was in, like, met another dancer in our company that was also a mom. Her kids were a little bit older, but she talked about how she was so glad she did it. And I, before becoming a mom, I was like, okay, maybe this is it. Like I remember being pregnant and like taking all of the classes, like dance till I was in labor pretty much. And I was like, I'm just going to get it out of my system. Like I'm going to be like, I'm just going to dance it all out. And once I have a kid, like maybe I'll just turn a new leaf. Well, didn't last too long. My husband was even like, yeah, right. Like you're not done. So, I think it's important to like not have any expectation on yourself. Like when it comes to anything is like, just see how you feel. Like what are you really going to want when that happens? And for me, it was like, yeah, I was doing basically bar like 3 weeks after, like with my baby, like on my chest in my home studio, just like dancing already. And then from there, things started to slowly just like trickle back in. And as I like felt it, like I remember I started taking class again for me, and how amazing I felt like coming home. Like for me, when I'm in the studio, I feel home. Like the ballet bar, that's my home, right? So I knew that I needed that piece of myself to be a better mom. So then I started teaching again, and I started going to this company class, and I talked to a friend who was like, you should look into this college. Like, I think you would really enjoy the faculty there. And I'm like, okay. And it turns out like once I just started just taking those steps, everything just sort of felt in. And then as well as my mindset to movement, I felt like, I took a little pause while I had my baby, but they're about 6 months old. I was like, just felt really called. Like, I need to bring this back. There are dancers waiting for help, for guidance, just as I had. And what a blessing that was when I had those few people come in and be like, just angels on my path that helped make those transitions easier for me. And I just knew that I wanted to start that back up. And I'm like, I'm going to be in it. Like, I can't just talk the talk. Like, I'm going to be in it. Like, that's so important to me, is that like I stay current, I stay in it, so that I'm speaking from like the most genuine, authentic place, that I'm not just, speaking from past experience, that I'm living it. And so I just began to take the steps. And again, when it's meant for you, there will be a way. There will be a way for you to make it happen. And I think if people can see it and dancers can see it as like, not like, okay, mom, and then this, like nothing's compartmentalized. It's you. It's all the facets of you. Like, yeah, you wear many hats. Like, if you want to do it all, great. If you just want to focus on these things, great.
Yeah.
But I think it's in society, it's like, you're so busy. And I'm like, I hate that that's praise, because I'm like, just because I like to do all these things doesn't mean that you only doing these couple, like, doesn't mean that you're not, you know what I mean? It's just that comparison of like the busyness and doing it all. But for me, I wouldn't change anything about that, because it's who I am, So I don't want anybody to feel like they are not doing enough, but also know that whatever is on your heart is possible. There's a way to make it all happen.
I'm like taking notes. I'm like, okay,
you can do it. And I'm encouraged. There is a lot more, like the company that I'm dancing with now, like we're all pretty much moms. There's a few that aren't yet, sweet. But it's just so fun that we can relate and be in the same season of life. And I honestly believe that my time in the studio now is like way more productive, because I am so present, and I'm like I just soak it all in.
It's like your time for you, because you're constantly on as a mom and a wife, balancing kids and husband and home life and all that stuff. And then you get that moment in the studio, you're like, this is the time for me. It's like when moms go to the gym and they're like, take my kid. Thank you. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go to my Pilates class. It's my time for me. And everyone needs that, especially moms, for sure.
You have to. I just, and it helps me 100% show up better as a mom.
Yes.
And as like, it just, again, not losing yourself in that. And like I fully believe like my kids deserve to see me as the best version and continually growing. Like I want them to be like, oh wow, like okay, I can do it too, you know, like just be inspired. And so yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think it's like, I don't know where it even started, but it's like we're told, I think it starts when you're in middle school and they're like, don't get a boyfriend, don't get a girlfriend, like can't have that, can't have distractions. And then it just somehow naturally turns into like, you can't have a spouse, you can't have a family, distractions,
you have to choose like one or the other. You have to have a career or you have to have a family, but you can't have both. And it's like, well, why not?
Let me tell you, you can.
And I love
you will. If that's what you want, like it'll
find
happen.
a way to make it work and it will happen for you. Exactly.
It will happen. Like everything, seriously, like your day to day can be like, wow, like my life is not perfect, but I feel like, wow, I'm blessed to live this day. Like, I'm at peace and like, I love it. Like I wake up every day like, yes, to do all these things. Like, this is my life. Like what? And I deserve everyone. I think everyone deserves to feel that way. In their life. Like completely fulfilled, that they are living in their purpose, that they are just living their purpose, I think is the biggest thing. And making the impact that they were born for, being able to use all their experience and their talents and gifts. And because I mean, we're here to help each other, right? We're here to help each other. We're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to like struggle, just struggle in silence, but to help each other is a beautiful thing, like in this journey.
Help each other find yourself outside of just the dancer. I think that's so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more thing before we close out, because I know we're getting up on the hour. What is one thing that you wish we would either talk about more in the dance industry, or one bit of change that you wish you could see amongst dancers?
Okay, I'll start with the change. The change I want to see is when we talk about burnout from dance. Like dance, burnout from dance is never the problem. Okay, like you think about dance itself. What is it? It is the joy of movement. It is life-giving. It is pure and beautiful and transformative. And all these things that we've been talking about. So please do not say I'm burnt out from dance. Like, no, that's just not a thing. Like if you're burnt out, we need it. Look at the circumstances around it. And people often blame the industry, like, oh, the dance world, da 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 da. It's like, okay, but you're gonna find that in the real world too. It's not just the dance world, okay? Like these are people problems. We are imperfect people, but guess what? You can complain about it, or you can do something about it. Like you can be the change. Like one of the our mindset movers, she was discouraged that she's in this town in Branson, that she's like, oh, I wish there were like better adult classes here. Like there's just not a lot going on. And like make the class. If you're feeling this way, another dancer is, she's like, frick, her class is taken off. Every week she has people coming and created the space for dancers to come and train and to come and connect and build this community. So it's like, if you see lack, if you think that something should change, like you can be the change, like do it. And we can either walk away. I don't think abandonment is the answer. Do I think that there are times where people like they need to close a chapter and turn a different direction? Absolutely. Like that's up to the individual, but do not blame dance and be the change. Like if you see that there's a need for dancers in the industry, like do it, fill the need, like be the advocate. Because there's so much that we can do. There's so many possibilities. Don't feel like you have to fit in a cookie cutter box and do this track. Like there's so many, you are prepared through your dance career to do so many things. Like if you want, like the world is your oyster. And so I want you to feel like nothing is stopping you. Nothing is stopping you. So grab a hold, go forth, go for your biggest dreams. And let's do it, because you're never if you're feeling it, another dancer probably is as well. So you can either let that dream die with you, or you can make it happen.
Absolutely.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, we're so quick to blame.
Yeah.
It's
Quick to
like,
blame,
instead,
right?
yeah, so quick to
Well,
blame.
it's like, okay, maybe that person was at fault, or that was this, like, you can accept that as a poor circumstances, or you know, you don't have to ignore it again or suppress it, but what are you going to do with it? It's all about
Yeah.
what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to make you bitter or better? It's up to you.
That one's convicting. Better.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
Oh my gosh. I could probably open up a can of worms and talk for hours, but we actually are on time here. So before we close out, where can friends find you? Where can dancers connect with you and continue the conversation outside the pod?
Yeah, feel free to DM me on Mindset to Move. That's probably the best way to just, send me a DM. You're never alone. We're building this community, so I'd love for you to reach out if you feel like, you know, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your why, and support you in any way that I can.
Thank you so much. Such a light to talk to, and I'm very excited for people to hear this.
Yeah,
Me too.
Thanks so much for having me on and providing this space. Like, this is pretty amazing that you two, like, how old are you?
23.
24.
So young, so much life ahead. And so it's just amazing that you are doing this and providing this space and making this happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. So sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, well, for everyone who's listening, we'll see you next week. Kaley, we will chat in the future. We appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Y'all follow her.
Yes.
Bye, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.